evening, everyone.
Hello, Professor Su.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, Anthony.
Good morning, Francis.
Good morning, professors, colleagues. Thanks for joining today's webinar. Our webinar is starting shortly. We are still admitting some new members, and then I think we can start in 2 minutes. Good morning, everyone. I can see now that we are still having some new members coming in, and at the same time, we can see in the chat box that we have our MOOC learners and MOOC community members from all over the world. So don't hesitate to join them, to say hi to your colleagues and to our LEAD2 MOOC community members. Thank you. Our webinar will start soon. Thank you. We are going to wait until 10:05 and we are going to start our meeting. And I see many familiar faces here coming in. Thank you for joining our today's webinar. Thank you very much. So yes, I see the time clock is ticking. So I will say we can start today's webinar. So hello, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar, Internationalization of Higher Education and Platforms of Cooperation Networks. The past year with the COVID-19 pandemic has proven to us one more that we are now living in a highly globalized and connected world. Internationalization is no more a choice, but a key to enhancing institutional development, particularly in the higher education context. Despite the strong turbulence of the global health crisis in international talents mobility, we can see internationalization efforts emerging around the globe in different forms, such as internationalized course content design, international research cooperation, the establishment of dual degree or branch campus, etc. Moreover, the advancement of digital technology further bolsters the process, allowing educational resources and talents to mobilize virtually worldwide. A vivid example I can give you now is that at this moment, we have this privilege to gather both our veteran experts from our LEAD2 partner universities and our supportive LEAD2 MOOC learners from around the world in this single virtual meeting room. And we feel more than ever a thriving LEAD2 community bonded with mutual academic goals and purposes of learning about academic leadership and university governance with the support of digital technology. So we can see that both globalization and digitalization present tremendous potential for us to explore and leave us with various new challenges to be solved. This is why we convened this meeting today to discuss what we have learned about the internationalization of higher education and platforms of cooperation networks, and what we can envision for the future. On behalf of the LEAD2 project team, I am pleased to extend my greetings and welcome to all of you, the LEAD2 partners, LEAD2 MOOC learners and alumni, and interested participants. I am Qi Zhengwen, a member of the LEAD2 project team and also a facilitator and course designer of the LEAD2 MOOCs. It is a great honor for me to moderate this webinar. Beyond being a webinar, this is also a platform to be vocal of your opinions, exchange with experts and peers, and learn from each other to better comprehend the internationalization of higher education. As a short notice for our LEAD2 MOOC learners, upon your active participation in this meeting, you will be granted a proof of attendance administered under the scheme of the LEAD2 project after the webinar. This certificate would give you 2 bonus points in one of the LEAD2 MOOC discussion forums, but it can only be used once. I would also like to remind you that this webinar will be recorded and uploaded to the LEAD2 YouTube channel for future consultations. If you feel like interacting with us during and after the webinar, you are welcome to use the Padlet platform designed by the LEAD2 project. If you have a Twitter account, don't hesitate to follow us at LEAD2P and use the hashtag LEAD2Development to record your thoughts and experience with us. All the links can be accessed in the chat box. And finally, I would also like to thank the generous funding from the Erasmus Plus program to the LEAD2 project, which made this intellectual encounter possible. So now, without further ado, I will give the floor to Professor Dr. Zhu Chang to deliver the welcome address and briefly present the agenda flow of today's webinar. Professor Zhu is a full professor in educational sciences at the Vrije University Brussels since 2010, and she is also the major coordinator of the LEAD2 project. So Professor Zhu, welcome. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Zhengwen. Welcome everyone from our LEAD community, our LEAD2 partners and LEAD2 MOOC learners, and certainly all the members that are presenting today. So we are very happy to welcome you to this webinar. As you can see here today, we have this large community, including LEAD2 partners, LEAD2 MOOC learners, as well as other interested associated members. So it is a great honor. So today we have this opportunity to discuss internationalization and international cooperation in the changing age. So I would like to briefly introduce a little bit the EU-China cooperation journey with our stakeholders and also the specific agenda of today about this webinar. So regarding EU-China cooperation, so a lot of our stakeholders, our partners, our members have been already familiar with our previous projects. For example, we started from 2013 to 2016 on the project of EU-China DOC project. This project is aiming at enhancing cooperation between Chinese and European universities on doctoral education. So this is a 3-year project that have enhanced our dialogue cooperation, conference cooperation, and etc. in the field of doctoral education. And actually build on this network and cooperation between Chinese and European universities, we further developed our cooperation from the EU-China level on the university governance and academic leadership development. So during 2015 to 2018, we have engaged ourselves in enhancing cooperation between Chinese and European universities on university governance and academic leadership. So again, building on the experience of LEAD projects, we are now in the phase of LEAD2 project. So the LEAD2 project from 2019 to 2022, we are engaging ourselves further to enhancing, to improving academic leadership capacity building and university governance cooperation. So among this cooperation, I would also like to highlight the formats, the models of EU-China cooperation, because that will be also one of the key topics that we are going to discuss today about new formats, new models, new scenarios, how we can further enhance internationalization and international cooperation in the digital age. So along the journey of our EU-China cooperation, we have engaged ourselves in dialogue among stakeholders, workshops of supervisors, PhD students, conference of different academic members, academic leaders, panel sessions, roundtables, seminars, forum, gallery walk and discussions, job shadowing we have implemented during the LEAD project with academic members or academic leaders shadowing another member in a different university or from China to Europe. And we have also undertaken peer learning among different members and how try to match the interests of different academic members and academic leaders in order to facilitate peer learning. And now in the phase of LEAD2 projects, we have engaged in a big extent in terms of MOOC courses. So today we have a lot of MOOC learners following us and online workshops, webinars. And very importantly, all this cooperation and also the international collaboration engages building up platforms and networks. I think building up platforms and networks, these are the strength of our networking and our cooperation. And we further need to, further enhance these platforms and the networks. So that's also why this will be the key topics of today. So how to further build platforms and the networks in international cooperation. As I mentioned, in this digital age, we need new formats, new models, and new scenarios. So the digital age actually is not anymore a new concept. However, the global epidemic has actually speeding up this transformation of new formats, new models, and new scenarios. So therefore, in today's program, we wanted our panelists and all the participants to engage yourself to discuss about what would be new formats, new models, and new scenarios in terms of internationalization and international cooperation. So our program of today, we will start first to hear 3 keynote speeches from Professor Yasha Kondachi, and then Professor Yasha Kondachi is from Middle East Technical University, MITU. It's one of our LEAD2 members. And then we will hear the keynote speech from Professor Liu Liusheng. Professor Liu is from Yunnan Normal University. Later on, he will be presented. And then we also have one of our MOOC representative to present to you regarding internationalization, Dr. Bazan Ali. So after 3 keynote speeches, we will have a roundtable panel discussion. So the panel discussion, we will have 5 panelists. However, in addition to the panelists, all the participants, you will be warmly welcome to participate in this discussion roundtable. And after that, we will have the summary insights gained, reflected by our colleague, Dr. Su Yang from Beijing Normal University. So that is my short introduction to our workflow and our agenda of today. So now I give back the floor to Zhengwen, please. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Zhu, for your warm address and the clear presentation of today's agenda. We are already eager to listen to our guest speakers. So now, before we start the main course, I would like to invite my colleague, Kuyen Ding, to help us take the group photo. So Kuyen is a member of the LEAD2 project team as well. She is an emerging young researcher in educational sciences. So Kuyen, now please, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chungwon. Welcome everyone to join our workshop. So now is the time for group photo. May I ask all of you to open the camera, and then we can take a group photo together before we move on to another keynote speech. Yes. Okay. So today we have almost 60 participants. Thank you. We see the camera is on. Okay, I'm gonna take the photo. We have two groups now. Group 1. May I count? Okay. 3, 2, 1. One more. 3, 2, 1. And now we go to group 2. 3, 2, 1. Let me admit David to join. Okay. One more time. 3, 2, 1. So now we go to the last group. 3, 2, 1. One more time. 3, 2, 1. Perfect. Thank you, everyone. So we are done with the group photo, and now I give back the floor to Chungwon, please.
Thank you very much for this lovely moment, Kuyen. Thank you very much. And the photos will be later uploaded on our website. So if you want to take away this lovely moment, don't hesitate to visit our website to take them out. So now I would like to invite you to join me for a small game, which is the Mentimeter webinar. I will explain to you how we manage that. So before I explain to that, I will share my screen with you so you have a better idea. Exactly. So as you see, before we start the intellectual journey with our keynote speakers, I would like to invite you to answer to this question. It is a ranking question. So from the literature, we know that there are different rationales that drives the internationalization process of university. So majorly, there are 4 rationales, which are academic rationales, economic rationales, cultural rationales, and political rationales. So how do you rank the rationales that drive the internationalization process at your university? So you are welcome and you are invited to take out your tablet, a mobile phone, or computer and go to www.menti.com and just use our number here, 5989-5183, to join this small online pool. So it is very interactive. You will see later on how our audience perceive the rationales that drive the internationalization process at the university. And this will also give us some insights for the later on keynote speeches. Thank you very much. So we are expecting your answers. I will explain again. Don't hesitate to go to www.menti.com and enter the code 5989-5183 to join this ranking question. So this is a ranking question. You need to firstly pick up the first rationale that you think the most important that drives the internationalization process at your university, and the second, the third, the fourth. So we have now 2 answers, and cultural rationale seems to be a little bit ranking the first now. Academic rationale takes the first lead now. Let's see. So as you see here, for different rationales, we have some minor dimensions. For example, academic rationales, we have the pursuit of academic excellence, worldwide reputation, global knowledge and understanding. For cultural rationale, we have cultural mediator, intercultural understanding, promotion of national culture, etc. For economic rationale, it will be income generation or the provision of internationally skilled human resources for the nation. And for political rationale, we have national identity building, foreign policy assistance, and international visibility. So we have now 14 answers so far. Thank you very much for your participation. And we can see now academic rationale ranks the first. So it is really thriving to see like how all the audience from all over the world, we regard a little bit how internationalization was driven at the institution we will wait for another 1 minute to have a more comprehensive outlook of this small interactive pool, and then I will give the floor to the keynote speakers. So yes, we are having new answers coming in. Academic rationale remain the first driver for internationalization process, followed by the cultural rationale and political rationale, and the last one is economic rationale. So it's very thrilling to see all of this. However, I would like to remind you that it is only the answers from our audience. So it may be not the most reflective of the overall process of the whole world. However, it can already give us some insights on the internationalization process at the university, at least from our audience's institutions. So yes, thank you very much for your participation. It is very thrilling to see your answers. So I would like to conclude this interactive session. As you can see here, the first driver that from our audience perception that drives internationalization process at the university is the academic rationale, followed by the cultural rationale and political rationale, and economic rationale plays the least role among these four. In the internationalization process, it is very interesting to see our insight. Thank you very much. So now, let's start our intellectual journey with our keynote speakers. If you have any questions, comments, or remarks during the interventions of guest speakers, don't hesitate to use the hands up function below or leave a message in the chat box. After each keynote speech, we will have a small Q&A session with our guest speakers. So let me introduce firstly our first keynote speaker, Professor Dr. Yashar Kundakchi from Middle East Technical University. Professor Dr. Yashar is professor in educational administration and planning at LEAD2. His research focuses on higher education, educational change, and social justice in education. He is a section editor of the Research in Educational Administration and Leadership Journal. He served as a council member of the European Educational Research Association between 2008 and 2009. He is still on the administrative board of the Turkish Educational Administration Research and Development Association. And he is currently the dean at the Graduate School of Social Sciences at LEAD2. I am sure with his rich background, Professor Dr. Yashar will give us a lot of insightful opinions. So Prof. Yashar, now the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good morning to all European and African friends and colleagues, and good afternoon to Chinese colleagues, and I have seen colleagues from Afghanistan. So very warm welcome to all of you, both old and new friends. So if you stop sharing screen, I would like to share my own. All right. So today I would like to talk about a very recent discussion on internationalization, and probably most of you have heard the concept virtual internationalization. So I will talk about the causes leading to virtual internationalization, the impact of virtual internationalization on higher education briefly, but mainly on our understanding of internationalization in higher education. And I will close the presentation with a brief coverage of some challenges in relation to virtual internationalization at our universities. Some recent developments have caused a transformational impact on higher education. Raja Gopal and her colleagues indicated digitalization, increased collaboration, and openness, inclination to openness, as three transformational developments or forces causing change in our understanding of both higher education and internationalization in higher education. Digitalization inevitably caused a huge disruption in our understanding of designing higher education programs, designing courses, delivering courses. Digitalization leads to new learning infrastructures. A second development is actually increased global interconnectivity, and in relation to this, increased global collaboration at both individual and institutional levels in higher education. And as a result of these collaboration, we have new agreements. We witness to broader recognition and collaboration at individual and institutional levels in the higher education space across the globe. And third one is inclination to openness. Inclination to openness, well, we expect inclination to openness to democratize access to higher education, improve quality, bring innovative design and enrich content, create additional offerings. Recently, we have started to talk about openness in relation to research. So openness seems to be a pervading term or tendency in higher education across the globe. I would like to add, in addition to these three developments, of course, I would like to add the recent or the ongoing, unfolding COVID-19 pandemic, because as a result of COVID-19 pandemic, we, individual academics and the institutions, have to reconsider our traditional, let me say, conservative understanding to learning and teaching in the virtual space. As a result, or because of COVID-19 pandemic, even like before the COVID-19 pandemic, we had some prejudices about teaching and learning in the virtual space. The students and the academics had to reconsider these prejudices. We at least have deep experiences with teaching and learning in the virtual space as a result of COVID-19 pandemic. So digitalization brought several new concepts into our discussions, and it is a fact that virtual internationalization is a new concept, and several scholars call for conceptual clarity. So before going further, I would like to define some key concepts and terms for the sake of conceptual clarity. Virtual, in the first place, refers to established or establishments or conducts developed by using internet and computer technology. Virtual internationalization, on the other hand, refers to the process of introducing an international, intercultural, and global dimension to the delivery, purpose, and function of higher education with the help of ICT. As you see, this definition is exactly the same with Jane Knight's definition of internationalization for the conventional, for the traditional internationalization. Brown just added the ICT dimension to the traditional definition of virtual internationalization. So this definition of virtual internationalization actually indicates, remarks what we are going to see in relation to virtual internationalization. As I indicated, digitalization introduced more concepts, many different new concepts to our life as academics, scholars, and students. And one of these concepts related to virtual internationalization is virtual mobility. According to Raja Gopal and her colleagues, virtual mobility is different from virtual internationalization. And virtual mobility refers to study activities that students enrolled in higher education in one country undertake online courses in other countries without physical mobility. There are several other concepts that we are going to, like if we will work on virtual internationalization, we will encounter these concepts and probably more concepts more and more. virtual mobility, virtual exchange, globally networked learning, telecollaboration, collaborative online international learning are different concepts linking digitalization and internationalization. And probably we will use other concepts when we elaborate, when we work on virtual internationalization. So as I said at the beginning, digitalization and open and distance education lead to some disruptive changes in our understanding and practice of higher education. So enriched provisions in terms of programs and courses, ease of access, and flexible processes in enrollment are made possible as a result of digitalization. And as a result of these developments, we start to understand that internationalization of higher education is not synonymous with what we traditionally mean by international. It is not synonymous with physical mobility of students and scholars. So it is more than physical mobility for institutions and scholars right now. Brun suggested to focus on internationalizing practices at home. So we started to look for opportunities for internationalization at home and internationalization of curriculum with the help of digital technologies. So activities on campus or online have been developed to complement or substitute the physical mobility. Digitalization and our revised understanding of open and distance education has led to blurring in the boundaries between open and distance education and conventional education. So virtual education, virtual internationalization multiplies the form of internationalization in higher education. It is more than virtual mobility only, and of course, virtual mobility is more than physical mobility. Virtual internationalization is more than physical mobility of students and scholars. So according to Brun, this virtual internationalization caused a drastic understanding in our mindset that we utilize to think about internationalization. According to several scholars, several prominent scholars in internationalization of higher education, including David, including Hunter and Brun, the key question that we ask for understanding internationalization must change. So instead of asking, do we have international participants, a question which actually right now pervades our understanding of internationalization. For example, a question pervades understanding of internationalization of international ranking agencies in higher education. This question must shift into, do we have internationalized learning environments? So this calls for more focus on internationalization of curriculum with the help of ICT, internationalization of curriculum at home, beyond physical mobility, of course. So what we shall do, according to David, Hunter, Brun, we should internationalize on-campus distance education practices. We should provide intercultural awareness into online course development. We should introduce global component into the curriculum, and we should improve intercultural understanding in the virtual setting for the students and academics. Why we need this? We need this because educating, the key goal of internationalization is not bringing in international scholars and students. The key, the ultimate goal is to educate graduates who are able to live and work in a global society. So internationalization does not only mean the enrollment of the students from anywhere from the world. It includes aspects of introducing a global component into at-home curriculum, into on-campus and online distance education in the same way. Another impact of digitalization on higher education is the new infrastructures, new virtual internationalization instruments, development of MOOCs, if you like, in other words. In that sense, the LEAD project with its huge MOOC infrastructure for university governance, academic leadership, can be considered, of course, as an instrument of virtual internationalization. But in the world, we have a huge, big online course certificate or program providers. You know the name of these providers: Coursera, Udacity, Myriad X, edX. In Turkey, we have, for example, Bilgeç, Udemy. The common characteristics of these providers, they have the capacity to go beyond national boundaries. They are able to provide education for different age groups. It is not limited to age groups, and it is beyond the formal programs. And probably the most important characteristics of these providers is that they are able to collaborate with big, huge universities and companies across the globe in order to develop their content, in order to develop their delivery methods and assessment methods. Digitalization and, as a result, virtual internationalization, of course, comes with certain, threats and opportunities. And in order to survive, in order to benefit from the opportunities and survive the threats or challenges, we need to develop new structures, new facilities, new understandings, and new skills, both at institution level and individual level. I will talk later on about the necessary skills that we need to develop for virtual internationalization, but to name some of them, based on, of course, Raja Gopal's and her colleagues' study, for example, open-mindedness, networked learning, active self-regulated learner skills, media and digital literacy, autonomy-driven learning, interactive and collaborative learning in an authentic international environment are some of the skills that we need to develop both on the learner side and the teacher side, delivery side. As I said, virtual internationalization does not come without any challenge. There are several challenges. In the first place, there is a lack of model for virtual internationalization for the institutions especially. Recognition is another problem. Recognition, there are still resistance to recognize virtual internationalization practices as a kind of a source of developing skills. During their studies at institution level, institutions show resistance to give equal rights and recognitions to the students. Recognition of credit transfer, accreditation are some of the problems that virtual and internationalization practices encounter. Another problem or challenge that we face in relation to this is how are we going to interconnect the traditional on-campus programs and virtual internationalization courses. As I said, recognition of the courses or credits taken in the virtual internationalization space to be incorporated into traditional courses. Across the globe, there is a huge resistance on the part of the academics and the institutions to recognize these credits. As a result, we need new forms of learning agreements between institutions, new learning agreements between two or more parties, recognizing the rights and duties to collaborate and cooperate to build virtual internationalization and virtual mobility further. Another challenge is that although there is a growing infrastructure for virtual internationalization and virtual mobility, the end user, the learners approach these provisions with a little bit suspicion or with distance. So according to different studies, virtual courses' ability to go beyond national boundaries, physical boundaries, actually, interestingly, is still very limited, because the students still tend or incline to choose on-campus, face-to-face physical spaces, according to a study conducted by Sadikova. Another challenge is related to the skill gap. As I indicated before, virtual internationalization require certain skills, certain competencies, and certain attitude changes. And at the core of these skills and competencies, digitalization, collaboration, and openness are three core skills that we need to develop, both on the part of the academics and on the part of the learners. Probably you have seen at your institutions how the academics are resisting to teaching practices in the virtual space as a result of COVID-19 pandemic. Third challenge, actually, in the exercise we did at the beginning today, we have seen the academic rationale and cultural rationales are still very important, even more important than the economic and political rationales for individuals and institutions. However, to what extent virtual internationalization will provide cultural interaction is a big question mark for students and scholars and institutions. Because one of the basic motivation to join an international program or study abroad was intercultural interaction. However, virtual internationalization or capturing cultural differences in the virtual space or accomplishing intercultural interaction in the virtual place is still a big challenge. So we have to provide an infrastructure, a space which provide learner and instructors bring their experiences, their cultural understanding, their types of socialization, their teaching skills come together, interact and exchange these assets in the virtual space. And the final challenge probably all academics and students face is related to pedagogies of virtual space or pedagogies in the virtual space. Teaching methods, adopting different teaching methods, and more importantly, the assessment and evaluation is still a big question mark in the virtual space. We know that different scholars, different companies are investing in undertaking assessment and evaluation in the virtual space. However, we still have a way to go regarding pedagogies in the virtual space before further talking about virtual internationalization with confidence. This is what I would like to cover about virtual internationalization. Thank you very much for your attention, and hopefully we will have some questions to bring more discussion to the topic. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Prof. Yashar, for inspirational speech about virtual internationalization. And indeed, actually, it gives us a lot of insights on this special topic. And actually, we do have a comment from the chat box from Sheikh Zenu Rini. I hope I pronounce your name well. So the speaker said, like there are mismatching in practical education through virtual learning, and also interaction between students and teachers is not adequate. So what can be done to reduce this gap between virtual and real life education?
Well, if I understand the question in the correct way, first we have to develop some, tools to connect the traditional programs and deliveries with the virtual programs and deliveries. In the first place, we need an infrastructure for this. Infrastructure, both technical and, of course, legal. At least in my university, we experienced these two dimensions. First, we need adequate or we need to use ICT adequately in order to facilitate this interaction. And secondly, we need to build further on technologies in order to facilitate this interaction. Yes, we have Zoom, we have other, digital tools. However, these digital tools do not provide adequate spaces to interact. I think in the first place, we have to change our mindset, and we have to accept the fact that teaching in the virtual space will never be the same, will never give the same feeling as we teach in the traditional classroom. And then once we accept this, we will have to invest in our methodologies and infrastructures in order to facilitate, in order to improve our deliveries, in order to improve our interaction between the teacher and the learner in the virtual place. That's how I see the problem.
Thank you very much, Prof. Yashar. And I have another question from Solomon Tadele-Jembert, how it could be practical in developing countries.
Actually, the virtual internationalization, as I said at the beginning, especially the introduction of open and distance education and widening open and distance education with the help of virtual technologies is seen as a tool to level down the difference between developed and developing countries. Our aim was to introduce more and more content to developing countries, to students in developing countries, and as a result, to help them level down the problems in accessing quality content, quality method, and quality higher education provisions. So I think with a little bit in investment in these infrastructures, we will be able to help developing countries benefit from these offerings. However, as I said in one part of my presentation, we need to structure these collaboration. It is not like on the basis of individual learners find out some internet facility and connect to some databases. It must be built on the basis of agreements between institutions, and we, especially authorities in developing countries, must also recognize these deliveries or offerings.
Thank you. And related to this, Professor Yashar, we have two upcoming questions. And the first one is a little bit interesting because it's related to what you have said. So couldn't the governments of different countries put their efforts unitedly to solve the issues for the internationalization?
You mean virtual internationalization? That's how I understand. Actually, what I see, I don't want to be someone who is like trying to see the future, but I think in the near future, at governmental level, we will witness to more recognition of virtual internationalization deliveries. And initial signs, actually, if my European colleagues also agrees, initial signs, signals for this come from Europe, region of Europe. So we will actually witness to more and more governmental collaboration to facilitate virtual internationalization or exchange of content on the virtual space. The agreements may cover full virtual internationalization or may cover virtual mobility while they are registered into a home institution. They will be able to virtually travel, get some degree, some courses, and these courses will be recognized. That's what I understand. So I think governmental interaction will also increase in the near future.
Thank you, Professor Yasha. We do have 2 additional questions, and with a time constraint, I think we can quickly resolve them. So the first one is from Professor Yang Po. So if the virtual internationalization is mainly about internationalization of curriculum, how to evaluate and transfer credits students earned from virtual internationalized platforms or other universities?
Well, I would like to rephrase the issue. I mean, the first part, the first sentence of the question. The main concern of virtual internationalization, as Hans de Wit and Hunter indicated, is providing the skills, the competencies necessary for the individuals to live in a global environment, in an international environment. So if we accept this ultimate goal of internationalization, then where you are located in building these skills is not the most critical concern anymore. So if we accept this understanding of internationalization, then of course, with increased collaboration, with increased recognition, you can easily travel across different infrastructures in different countries and develop the necessary skills and understanding in order to, develop what you need to be in order to be a global citizen across the globe. So Hans David and other colleagues focus on the concept of internationalization at home. So we should forget about the concern for physical mobility. Physical mobility is not necessarily the only type of practice in order to internationalize, according to Hans David and other colleagues holding this understanding of internationalization.
Thank you. And the last question, sorry, dear participants, because we will still have another roundtable panel discussion on the digital and virtual internationalization later on. So maybe you can reserve a little bit your thoughts. I see that the speech by Dr. Yasha has already triggered a lot of thoughts here. So we are just admitting this final question and I will move on. So infrastructure is a bogus problem often used by students to resist virtual education and reduce the volume of lessons. So how to encourage students to accept this virtual education?
Well, at the core of this problem is related to the skills. I indicate some of these skills. Unfortunately, after the COVID-19 pandemic, we were actually unprepared. We didn't have these skills and attitudes. I indicated some of these skills which are indicated by Raja Gopal and her colleagues as a result of their study. Digitalization, collaboration, openness, actually we lack, most of the academics lack these skills. And unfortunately, these skills are missing on the part of the learners. So networked learning, active self-regulated learner skills, media and digital literacy, autonomy-driven learning, interactive collaborative learning in an authentic international environment, open-mindedness are important skills, and unfortunately the students has not developed, the learners have not developed these skills yet. So we must invest in developing these skills on the part of the teachers and learners, and then actually we will be able to handle these problems on the part of the learners in a better way. So I don't want to hold a blaming attitude to the students only because we experience several problems in virtual delivery of our content. So first we have to deal with these problems and then build the skills, competencies, and attitudes, and then I think we will be more comfortable. We will have more comfort in virtual delivery of our content.
Thank you very much, Dr. Yasha, for your lucid answers. And actually, as we can see from the chat box, we still have questions popping up, but I would suggest that we will take these questions in the common bars at a time, and then we are going to deal with them later on in the panel discussion, because we are going to have a more structured discussion on this later on as well. So thank you very much, Dr. Yasha.
I thank you. I thank you, all of you, for your attention. Thanks.
Thank you. So yeah, while waiting for Professor Liu's upcoming speech, I will present to you one of our LEAD2 MOOC representatives, Dr. Barzan Jafar Ali from Saladin University. So Dr. Barzan Jafar Ali is a lecturer at the University of Saladin, and he is also the coordinator of the English department. He obtained a PhD degree at the University of Sussex in 2019. Dr. Barzan, thank you for joining us today. So we can't wait to have your insights now.
Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you for having me, and thank you for organizing this webinar to discuss about the internationalization of higher education. And my topic is going to be on the history of internationalization of higher education in Kurdistan. Universities in Kurdistan are working on internationalization based on overseas student program, staff teaching, research capacity building, exchange program, student mobility, and collaboration with international associations. If you go back to the history, we can talk about two different periods of times. Before 2003, American invasion, and after 2003. Before 2003, Kurdistan was under two economic sanctions, one internationally imposed on Iraq and affected Kurdistan, and the other one from Iraq on Kurdistan. This made universities to remain locally and didn't have any interactions and connections with international universities. Moreover, based on a report by UNESCO in 2004, states that there were like over 250,000 students, undergraduate students, and over 15,000 postgraduate students at universities in Iraq. Also, over 30,000 academians, but very few of them were Kurdish, because it was very difficult for the Kurdish families to access to education because of the economic sanctions and political visions as well. So this one made even harder for universities of Kurdistan to contact and to make connection with international universities. And then after, we are discussing after 2003, transition power in Iraq. There were, in the war, in sense, put aside all the negativity of the war, we had a positive side of the war, which opened a gate towards the universities in Kurdistan, towards internationalization and bringing new technology to the country. As a consequence of the war, many private universities, and many more public universities established. Since the economic has dramatically impact on educational system, higher education affected by economic growth and national expenditure. This would lead more people to study and to be engaged with education. Besides, that would give people credibility to study more after their graduation from university. Accordingly, for achieving the sustainable development in higher education, the ingredients of higher education need to be reinforced, especially research capacity and staff development. Thus, the government, the Kurdish government, after this change in education system and opening the gate towards internationalization, the government thought of establishing a new Ministry of Higher Education. So the real internationalization process in Kurdistan started after 2006, after the establishment of the Ministry of Higher Education. The transition of power in Iraq in 2003 changed the Kurdistan region from an isolated region to an emerging region in the Middle East. And the demands on studying rapidly increased. This led RG to establish Ministry of Education, and the ministry had actively worked hard on updating educational system and internationalization of higher education. Then after this, the establishment of the ministry, the process of internationalization of higher education started. However, still there is a debate among the local academians about internationalization of higher education in Kurdistan, in a way that the key interests of internationalization are not yet clear, not only for the university staffs, but also for the public. Since engaging into a serious process like internationalization of higher education needs the investment of human resources and financial resources, the KRG have been giving support for investing manpower and investment in research infrastructure. Innovation and creativity in curriculum are the main key factors of internationalization process in Kurdistan. Secondly, public universities in Kurdistan region have started to work on partnership. And some universities are leading in this process, such as the University of Salaha, have been in a good cooperation with the European universities and American universities and regional universities, especially Turkish universities and Iranian universities. But some other universities are kind of passive in this regard. Maybe this is because of the geographical locations or financial factors. But still, they are putting more efforts towards internationalization of higher education, but this is not sufficient at the moment. Universities in Kurdistan have to decide on internationalization according to the mission and objective of the institutions. As a potentially internationalization will have an impact on curriculum, programs, and the rank of universities. Therefore, being involved in the process of internationalization and working on partnership is not easy for the Kurdish universities, since the universities have to work on finding a suitable partner which can fit the needs and demands of the second partners by taking into account their own interests at the same time. And moreover, providing easy access of technology to university students and staff. IT has an essential role in improvement of education, and this was proved by the COVID-19, as we all see the result of the importance of IT for internationalization. Easy access of technology and the internet helps Kurdish students to be linked with the foreign students and universities around the world. Well-prepared laboratories and IT centers will help in increasing the quality of education in universities. And Kurdistan regional government universities, to be internationalized, they need to have equal facilities capacity compared to their counterpartners. Sorry, I am a little bit fast because of the time limitation, so I hope you don't mind all. So now I'm going to talk about the challenges that facing the process of internationalization of higher education in Kurdistan. First of all, which is very important for any internationalization process, is lack of financial resources. Weakness of universities in cooperation as sustainable development comes from the dependency of the university on governmental funding. This makes university to be dependent on the government. So all the funds we receive from the universities are coming from the government. We don't have any independent resources, unfortunately, so far. And the government has not put any effort to build this connection between the government and the business partners to help the universities to find their own depending resources. Using traditional method of university governance is also another problem and another challenging for the universities in Kurdistan. Public universities in Kurdistan region are highly affected by the traditional model of the governments, and universities are victim of this bureaucratic system in which the policies are centrally planned and graduated by the Ministry of Higher Education. Budget must be typically approved by the government officials who may have a little bit understanding about higher education in general. So for whatever project we are taking to, we have to get back to the officials, to the governmental officials, to be approved by the government. That makes obstacle for the universities in Kurdistan to build a direct with their international universities. And also the decisions are always central. So if you have understanding with an international universities, they have the ability to make a decision quickly. But for us, for every decision, we have to get back to the officials in Kurdistan to see whether the decision are approved or no based on the financial resources. Lack of professional staff is also another problem. As I discussed previously, that before 2003, out of the 30,000 staff in the University of Iraq, we have a little bit of the staff in Kurdish governments, in Kurdish universities, sorry. So lacking competency in teaching staff at university has an impact internationalization process. Public universities in Kurdistan region seek to become more global than before. And this requires the university teaching staff to be engaged in global orientations of the educational system. Similarly, the role of the teaching staff is dramatically essential in these internationalizations, although many teachers are not developing this competence themselves. So the university are pushing their staff to improve their knowledge about internationalization process, but some teaching staff, kind of the older generation, which I am talking about in a second, are more passive to update themselves and to develop this competency in themselves. So we have two type of teaching staff. The older generation who studied universities, who became professors before 2003, and the new generation who went abroad to have their master's degrees and PhD degrees outside after 2003. Those who studied before are unable to get globalized and engage with outside world, and no room for training of teaching of teaching at universities in Kurdistan region. But for the new generation who has studied abroad, they came back with a lot of internationalization, and they have this kind of competency about the internationalization. So when they come back, two different ideas, two different generations are collapsing in the universities. One of them are trying to involve more with the internationalization, but the other trying to remain locally and stay silent. That's another big issue, another challenging for university. But the university has been working on this, and by quality insurance are asking teachers and lecturers to improve their knowledge and in teaching at university, especially if they have connection with international universities and other international academians in regarding researching and teaching. Also, another issue is, again, return back to the older generation, which is lack of foreign language skills among the university staff and students. So language barrier makes the international of higher education Kurdistan to be challenging at the moment. This also happens among older generation, but the new generation, they have a little problem in this, especially those who have studied abroad. For example, we have so many staff at university have studied in Turkey, who they can speak Turkish fluently. Who they have studied in Iran, they speak Persian fluently. Who they have studied abroad, they speak English or the language of the country fluently, which is very optimistic for the future of the university. And also for those younger generation who want to study at universities in Kurdistan, one of the compulsory mission for the to be a lecturer at university, they must pass IELTS 5.5, or they have to take a English course for 180 hours, which helps the teachers and staff to learn another language, and this helps the help the process of internationalization quicker. Now I'm going to conclude this and with some recommendations. Trying to create much tighter relationship with the reputed universities and institutions. Hence, public universities do pay attention to their global rankings and also to the brand of their education. Additionally, practical attention to internationalization of higher education in Kurdistan region is necessary. Universities have been working on finding reputable higher education institutions, improving the students' exchange program. The universities have to think of balancing the strong imbalance of exchange programs, where a lot of students are going abroad. But Kurdish universities, unfortunately, are unable to attract foreign students regionally and internationally. Increasing the awareness of university staff and students about internationalization of higher education, encouraging university staff and students to learn foreign languages, encouraging international academians and students to visit Kurdistan for scientific research about Kurdish language, culture, history, and geography. And that was my presentation. Thank you everyone for listening to this conversation, and I am ready for any questions.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Professor Barzon. Actually, we do have two practical questions from our audience. It's
Sure.
for you to answer. I think when you talk about the challenges, when you talk about the lack of professional staff, actually you are referring to the administrators and the university leaders. And are Kurdish universities entitled to apply fundings from EU projects?
Yes. So what is the main question exactly, please?
These are the two questions. So when you talk about the lack of professional staff, are you referring to the administrators and university leaders?
Yes. So in this question, I can answer it in two parts. One, for the administrative staff, we don't have those staff who are very, very good at international relations, because as you know, and as everyone knows, connection, national universities need experience. unfortunately, so far, we don't have this experience in the administrative level. And the government have been trying, and this is not because that the staff doesn't want to be passive, but unfortunately, since 2030, we are going through so many difficulties. First of all, for 6 years, we went through the war against ISIS. Then the dramatically drop of oil price. Then the political tension in the area. Then the COVID pandemic. Those 4 reasons have stopped the universities from being more internationalized. So this is for the administration level. And for the teaching level, yes, we still have some passive lecturers, unfortunately, who don't want to develop their knowledge in this term, and they don't want to make that connection between the international universities and international staff and themselves. This is because one of them is language barrier, and secondly, visa issues, because sometimes to create that good connection, you need some time to visit the universities abroad. But unfortunately, because of this problem happening in the area, it is very hard for the academians in Kurdistan to get visa easily to travel abroad. That's the main reason.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Barzan, for your explanation. And the second question is that are Kurdish universities nowadays entitled to apply for fundings from EU projects?
University of Salahuddin actually have been trying, and they are like making a cooperation in cooperation with European universities, and especially Erasmus program, and we have been successful in this regard. But for some other universities, unfortunately, they haven't been trying, and they are still passive in this regard.
Okay.
But also when it comes to negotiation and mutual intelligibility between the Kurdish university and European universities, it's always give and take. I will give you this, but what I will take return. And we don't have this. That's the issue. It's due to the financial problems, and especially mainly for the financial problem, financial resource, because we are not dependent. So when we go on the table to discuss about these connections, we always don't have much to give. When we don't have much to give, the European universities unfortunately try to push back and try to find another partner.
So yeah, that's why I think it is very important for us to convene this kind of format and of exchanges to exchange more of our challenges and what are the opportunities that we can find at our own universities. So we have another question. Sorry for participants because we are very late in our schedule. So I will accept only this one question for Dr. Barzan. So to create research interest among the students from the very beginning of undergraduation can be a productive step towards internationalization. Is infrastructure the only solution, or enhancing the skills of the managerial body, including teachers, staffs, and environment also needed?
For internationalization, everything are necessary, like the financial sources is more important, and the geographical location is also the main problem for internationalization in Kurdistan. For example, University of Salahuddin is located in the capital of the capital city. So it's more easier for the University of Salahuddin to build that connection with the international universities. But for some other universities, unfortunately, who geographical are far away from the capital city, they are kind of passive in this regard. And they don't also provide the ITs and new technology for their students to help the student to build that connection between the Kurdish universities and foreign university. So the connection between the Kurdish university and universities outside of the country and the foreign students is via social media. It's not something based on the education, but it's something based on the social relationship between the students and for universities and foreign students. So unfortunately, the universities has not putting any effort to build that connection between the students, local student and outside the students.
So yes, thank you very much, Professor Barzon. So sorry for concluding this part for you, because like we are very late in the schedule, but at the same time, I invite all of the audience who have uploaded their questions. You can still like do this conversation with Professor Barzon in our Padlet chat rooms. So we do have a chat room for you to further this interesting discussion. So our colleague will further copy and give you the link in our chat box. Thank you very much for your understanding.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much.
And now let's move on to our prominent keynote speaker, Professor Dr. Liu Liusheng from Yunnan Normal University. So Professor Liu Liusheng is a senior lecturer, adjunct professor, and vice director at Higher Education and Regional Development Research Institute of Yunnan Normal University in China. He holds a PhD degree in educational sciences and a master degree in educational principle. His main research areas involve the interactive relation between higher education and regional development, the assessment and optimization of higher education structure, etc. So today, Professor Liu will talk about recent university practices about platforms of cooperation networks. So I will give the floor to Professor Liu. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Qi Zhenwen. Yeah. I will give my speech in Chinese.
Yeah, and I will moderate. Yeah, I will translate for you in English. No worries, Professor Liu.
非常高兴，谢谢朱畅教授。很高兴今天参加我们LEAD学术共同体的一个活动。今天我想跟大家谈一下，就是有关我们中欧高校如何在LEAD学术共同体当中继续开展高校之间的这样一个合作的倡议。所以我今天的汇报的题目呢，就是中欧高校合作倡议啊。我从4个方面来回答，来探讨这个问题。第一呢，我想给各位简要介绍一下云南师大教育国际化的一个简化。我先简要说一下，你再翻译哈啊。那个云南师大的前身是国立西南联大的师范学院，历来对教育国际化比较重视，特别是现在云南师大是一所开放的有着国际化视野的现代大学啊，先后被国家汉办、教育部授予了周边国家汉语教学的10所重点高校之一，以及国务院的侨办华文教育基地等等啊，就是我们学校对教育国际化这块向来是非常重视的啊。好，这个是
好，谢谢刘老师。So thank you very much, Professor Zhu, for arranging this special webinar for us to discuss together how to build cooperation networks and innovation platforms for university internationalization. And I would like to discuss a little bit the initiatives for cooperation between Chinese higher education universities. So firstly, let me shortly introduce the internationalization of higher education at Yunnan Normal University. So as you may know, Yunnan Normal University is an open and modern university with an international perspective. It has been identified by the Ministry of Education and Hanban, the Chinese Language Council International, as one of the 10 key universities supporting Chinese language teaching in neighboring countries. The Chinese language education base of the Overseas Chinese Affairs Office of the State Council, the national base for training teachers for international promotion of Chinese language, and the base for Chinese language teacher training in Southeast Asian countries. It is also one of the first universities in China to host Confucius Institutes overseas, and one of the first receiving institutions for international students who enjoy Chinese government scholarships and Confucius Institute scholarships.
好，我们学校一直以来比较重视教育国际化这块。现在为止，我们学校是云南省来华留学生最多的高校啊。 因为这个很多国家都建立了这样一个教育合作的联系，所以简要翻译一下这块，待会儿重点是后面。
Okay, so sorry for being late due to the internet disconnection. And actually, I just introduced briefly the situation of the Normal University. And actually, it is also one of the universities with the largest number of international students in Yunnan province. And actually, it is also a very well-known university that attaches great importance to the internationalization. So now I will give you more info.
OK，自2016年以来，云南师大就作为LEAD项目的成员单位一直参与其中。在6年来的项目活动中，我们向各位成员单位学习，也受益匪浅，特别是得到了朱畅教授及其团队的大力支持和帮助。我们与中东科技大学与相关高校结下了合作的友情。
So since 2016, Yunnan Normal University has been involved as a member of the LEAD project. And during the 6 years of the project activities, we have learned from all the member institutions and gained a lot, especially with the strong support and help from Professor Zhu's team, and also with a friendship of cooperation with relevant colleagues from Middle East technical universities and other partner universities from the LEAD2 project.
是的。第二块，我想跟大家汇报一下我对下一步我们高等教育国际合作的一个目标和任务。我觉得我们下一步的高等教育国际化的合作目标，主要聚焦在高校之间，这个科研机构和地方政府的多方优势，形成高等教育联合研究的创新共同体。主要结合中欧双方高等教育发展战略及社会需求，联合研究。建立联合的研究创新机制，推动人才、科研和服务紧密结合，产出双方社会需求的高端成果。
So now I would like to briefly present to you the objectives and the tasks of higher education cooperation from our perspective. So as for the cooperation objectives, we should aim to form a joint research and innovation community in higher education by integrating the advantageous resources of relevant universities, research institutions, and the local governments in China and Europe. We should closely integrate the development strategies of higher education and social needs of both sides, establish a joint research and innovation system and mechanism while promoting and integrating the trio factors, talent, research, services, and produce high-end results that meet the social needs of both sides.
为此呢，我们的重点任务主要是聚焦高校促进区域经济社会创新发展的问题。重点开展国际化人才协同培养、区域高等教育应用研究、高校师资访学交流以及中欧高校改革和创新发展的合作项目。
So as for the key tasks, we should focus on the issues of universities promoting regional economic and social innovation and development, and focus on the cooperation projects such as collaborative training of international talents, regional higher education application research, university teachers visits and exchanges, as well as the reform and innovation development of EU-China universities.
第三部分我想回答。要实现上面的目标和任务，我们应该建立一个合理的合作组织架构和运行机制。这个组织架构主要是建议通过构建协同创新机制来保障合作，努力建成了人才、科研、服务三位一体的学术共同体。可以以我们项目成员单位为主体建立这样的学术共同体。其运行机制主要是建立一个中心及这个LEAD项目的共同体，然后搭建4个平台：人才培养合作平台、科研合作平台、高等教育应用服务的合作平台，以及师资与管理国际化的合作平台。在这4个平台基础上，我们应该实现6个协同，分别是理念协同、组织和管理的协同、人员团队的协同、人才培养的协同、科研项目的协同以及成果共享的协同。这个重点翻译这个结构这个框架。
So to ensure the achievement of the aforementioned objectives and key tasks, we need to establish this organizational structure and to smooth the operation of the cooperation. So by what we suggest is to, can we move on to the next slide, please, Zhao? To guarantee this cooperation between the two sides, and we suggest to build an academic community integrating the talent research services. And it is also proposed to construct a collaborative innovation mechanism with the operation mechanism as the following in the next slide.
Okay, 下一个我也
Yes, actually what we intended to is to establish this China-EU higher education community with a focus on 4 platforms, which are talent cultivation cooperation platform, scientific research cooperation platform, higher education application service cooperation platform, and internationalization of faculty and management cooperation platforms. At the same time, we need to focus on 6 synergies, which are the concept synergy, organizational management synergy, staff team synergy, talent cultivation synergy, research project synergy, and scientific and research finding synergies.
对，我们只有理念协同了，聚焦合作问题，那么我们才能开展实质性的合作。下面我想重点跟大家汇报一下我们可以合作的5个要点。我觉得下一步我们可以开展具体的合作项目。第一块是我们联合开展学术会议，我们愿意承担一些国际性的学术会议。第二个，我们可以联合申报一些科研平台，特别是现在中国国内有各层级各类型的一些科研合作平台。第二呢，是这个推动骨干教师的访学交流。第5个是我觉得今天要重点说的，就是我们可以搭建一些研究生的联合培养，因为我们现在云南师大教育学部就我所在的部门有了教育学一级学科博士点和专业博士，也就是双博士点，特别是这个EDD 就是教育专业博士，我们在跨境民族教育和多民族融合教育以及教育领导力教育领导与管理几个领域比较有特色，我们这个有资格来招收国外申请博士学位的留学生。现在我们也在做这块工作，就欢迎这个LEAD项目的成员单位推荐优秀的硕士申请我们这边的博士，我们可以共同培养，聘请对方的老师做我们的博导，然后呢，我们这边配个博导，共同培养这个 EDD。
Okay, so I would like to present to you 5 main areas where we can cooperate to from our side. So the first one is to the first one is that we can co-organize some academic conferences, and the second one is that we can conduct this joint academic research. The third one, can we move on, please? Yeah, the third one is that we can apply jointly for scientific research platform. And the fourth one is that we can facilitate backbone teachers visits and exchanges. And the most important one that I want to reinforce here is the fifth one, with the joint training of graduate students. And actually at our university, we are now focusing on the integration of multi-ethnic groups education. So we would like to have your suggestion of partner universities and also learners from around the world. If you would like to apply for the PhD degree in this area, you are welcome to have more information from our side.
云南是个美丽的地方，不仅自然风光很美丽，而且人文资源非常丰富。云南师大欢迎LEAD项目各成员单位来云南旅游工作。谢谢大家。
Thank you, Professor Liu. So Yunnan province is a very beautiful city with rich resources in its social, in its culture and in its natural sites. So we, on behalf of the Yunnan Normal University, we welcome you to come to Yunnan to pay a visit. Thank you very much. So I don't know whether our audience, do you have any questions for Professor Liu? This is our Q&A time with Professor Liu. And thank you very much for Professor Liu for your inspirational words about how we can cooperate between different institutions and the mechanism that you proposed with the 6 synergies and the 4 platforms. It is very enriching for us. Thank you.
Thank you.
At this moment, I don't see any questions from our audience. And as we are really late in our schedule, so I would propose that we proceed with the next agenda point. Yes, we have the comments for Professor Liu. Thank you. So let me proceed with the next agenda point, which is the testimonial video. And thanks again to our brilliant keynote speakers for all of your speeches. So thanks to you, we have obtained a lot of knowledge of the internationalization of higher education and platforms of cooperation networks, especially in the digital age. So talking about internationalization, we cannot ignore the LEAD2 MOOCs, which are accessible for learners worldwide. Since its launch in 2019, it has benefited more than 8,000 learners across the globe and realized a real international impact. So let's take a closer look to see how our MOOC learners perceive our LEAD2 MOOC courses. So I would give the floor to my colleague Zhao to display this testimonial video, and you can take a short break at around 5 minutes.
My name is Elizabeth Lander from Tanzania, currently doing a PhD at the Vrije University of Brussels.
I am Adrian Sunarine, and I am principal of a tertiary institution here in Trinidad and Tobago.
My name is Louis Giray, and I am a teacher at Parev Southridge School in Muntinlupa City, Philippines.
In 2019.
Just during the pandemic, I think in January 2020.
I think May 2020.
Getting through the course content, I found the course very interesting and corresponding to what I was looking for.
I had been nominated to become principal of a tertiary educational institution. And although I taught at a tertiary institution for a while, and although I had even taught in a secondary school and received some teacher training there, I had never specifically had any training in tertiary educational leadership. And therefore I decided that I really needed to learn more. When I looked at the outline of this course and what it offered, I decided that this would be very relevant to me and very meaningful, and it would make a difference in my life and in the lives of the people I led in my institution.
I want to really learn about this topic, academic leadership, which happened to be also what I want to pursue in my future endeavors.
Yeah, throughout the course, I learned several modules, including change management and academic leadership, research, innovation and valorization, also university governance, and also internationalization.
Well, many different things from the different modules. So I suppose one of the things that I appreciated learning was that institutions throughout the world, whether in Europe or China, they have a long history of education and of trying to improve on how to make that education as best as it can be for their students and also for the communities that they serve.
What I learned in general is that academic leadership is very pivotal in any organization, in any university organization. I see that and learn from there that leaders should become active, not only in delegating tasks, but in becoming a role model, someone who's willing to solve issues in the academe and in relation to the love of learning.
Yeah, absolutely. I always introduce the course to my colleagues, friends, and some of them found themselves interested to join the course in the future.
Certainly tell them about it, and I will show them the advertisements for it, and I will encourage them to do it. Yes.
I would very encourage my colleagues in the academe and also my friends who are interested in venturing to academic leadership, since not only that they would learn a lot there, but it's also for free.
So at this moment, I would suggest my colleague Yujie to provide a YouTube links of this video to this chat, and then like if you want, you can further watch the testimonial video of our LEAD2 MOOCs later on. So now I would like to move to next agenda point, which is the expected roundtable panel discussion. So it is after the structured keynote speeches, I'm certain that you have a more comprehensive thought about internationalization of higher education and platforms of cooperation networks, especially in the digital era. So now I will just invite my colleague Asen Khaliskan to help me moderate the roundtable panel discussion about what is the internationalization of higher education and platforms of cooperation networks in the digital age, and is there a new model, new format, and what are the new scenarios? So Asen, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Jiwon. Good morning and good afternoon to everyone. On behalf of LEAD2 members, I extend my sincere welcome to each of you. I am Dr. Aysun Çalışkan. I am a researcher at VUB and a facilitator and organizer of LEAD2 research activities. Today, I will moderate panel discussion, and in this discussion, our LEAD2 partners from Europe and China and LEAD2 MOOC learners will go through new internationalization models and concepts in the digital age and explore cooperation networks and platforms, as well as discuss new academic leadership scenarios. Before starting the discussion, please first allow me to introduce our outstanding discussants, but I have just realized on chat that Professor Matos has to leave the meeting because of a tight schedule. So I will just, of course, give some info about him, but he will not attend panel discussion. So we will have 4 discussants instead of 5. Chao, maybe you can share the screen for presentation for the name of the participants. Let me go on by just reading their names. And our first discussant is Meijing Ying from NAEA, Beijing. And she's the coordinator of, she's the director of international cooperation at NAEA in Beijing. And she's the coordinator of LEAD1 and LEAD2 project and various international programs at NAEA. Dr. Ayat Yan from Tongji University. She's the deputy director of International Office and assistant dean of Sino-French Institute of Management and Engineering at Tongji University. And we have Dr. Ibrahim Yorgun. He is the director of International Cooperations Office at Middle East Technical University. He has a broad experience in mobility programs, project development cycles, in educational projects, and execution of short-term academic programs, as well as budgeting and financial control. And our last panel discussant is Deborah Arnold. She's the coordinator of national and international projects and at the French Digital University for Economics and Management. And she is responsible for developing and coordinating a number of projects such as active learning for soft skills, open virtual mobility, and digital credentials. Let me briefly summarize the flow of this panel. We have 3 questions, as you may see on the screen. I will first ask those questions to the discussants, and at the same time, I will kindly ask to the audience to enter their insights through Mentimeter. You can see the Mentimeter code. It is just the same as you did at the beginning. You log on to menti.com and simply enter the code and participate us and engage with us through Mentimeter. The same interactive pool at the beginning. And now I would love to take the opportunity to ask the first question to Professor Jan. Professor Jan, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah, okay. Let me first start with my first question. What do you think about the internationalization in the digital age?
Okay. Actually, hello everyone. I'm Yana Huang from the International Office of Toronto University. So I'm very happy to see all of you again. So now I know quite well the majority of the participants, and it's really a good opportunity to share practice and experience with all of you. Actually, for the first topic about the internationalization in the digital age, since 2020, we all suffered from the pandemic, actually the COVID-19. So it's really a very big challenge for all the staff working in the international office, but also for the students and professors and researchers, because the physical mobility is more and more difficult for all of us, especially from China's side. We didn't open our frontier till now for the foreigners. So all of our international students now, if they were not in China in 2020, they can't come to China till now. So I think from Tongji side, we did a lot of efforts to help our students. If I want to talk about the students, I mean our Chinese students, but also the international students, and we also served the students enrolled by our international partners. So let me share this experience with you. Actually, because of the pandemic, so our university firstly was closed. So all the students, Chinese or international, have to stay home, or they can't enter to the campus till May last year. So all the professors have to change their teaching methodology. It means we use very largely all the professors should shift to the distant education for all the students, Chinese and international students. And then since May, Chinese students came back to the campus, but our international students should still follow the course in online. And at the same time, because of the difficulty, especially for the Chinese students enrolled by international university, mainly in USA, they can come to US. So we discussed with our partners. So we welcome the students physically or by the online courses. So It means Chongqing's educational curriculum are opened not only to our students, but to international students. So this is one case about our this internationalization in the digital age, first one. And the second example is about our international conferences. Actually, university organize every year a lot of international conference. So we welcome a lot of international participants from different nationalities. Last year, fortunately, we still organize quite a lot international conference, and very luckily, we have very unexpected results that we have more participants from more nationalities participant to our international conferences. This is a new thing for us because compared with the past. So if the keynote speakers and participants have to move to China for participating in the international conference, it's a very big cost for them, for the international travels, but also they need reserve quite a long time too from their country to China. But actually, with the thanks to the pandemic, so more participants stay at home and very easily they connect with us. So we attract much more participants from much more nationalities. So I just share these two examples with you, and later I will discuss with you, share with other practice and my thinking. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Professor Yan. It is really interesting to hear your challenges and the solutions to those challenges. I have a minor question here, just related to what you have mentioned. Did you do anything regarding summer courses or summer school? Do you have a new model for summer schools as well?
Yes, actually we have. Firstly, we organize our summer school from outside. So we welcome the international students. Eyesight example is that on 5th June is the International Environmental Day. So we welcome more than 300 students from more than 100 countries. They participate to a student forum annually organized by Chongqing University. And this is some more or less like a summer school. It will last 1 week. The students work on different topics and they work in groups and they have different kind of results, working results shown. So this is one of the case, but we will organize more in this summer. Mm-hmm. And then another case is that we work with our internationalists to jointly design summer schools online. So one case is that Chongqing, we co-design a summer school with UPN and UPC in Spain. So we will welcome the students from both countries, but it will also open to others. And Chongqing is also organized a summer Shanghai summer school supported by the Shanghai government, municipal government every year. So this is now it's on the time for inviting all the students, and we are still waiting for the candidates. But we do believe we will have much more candidates this year for this Shanghai summer school.
Thank you very much, Professor Yan. Professor Ying, can you hear me?
With me, thank you.
Yeah, welcome to our panel discussion. What is your perspective about this question? How has the internationalization changed in digital age?
Yes, thank you all, and thank you very much for this seminar and webinar, and thank you for the keynote speakers. It's very enlightening. I actually, to answer this question, I have a very short slide. Shall I share it with you?
Yes, with pleasure.
Okay, thank you. Yeah. Yeah. Good morning to our old friends in European and new friends in other continents. And good afternoon to Chinese friends. I'm Mei Ying from National Academy of Education Administration. And to answer the question, I mainly concentrate on the last one, what networks and platforms for cooperation in the digital era, and what new scenarios for academic leadership. And so first, I would like to understand what is digital era, that according to the definition, it is characterized by technology with increases the speed and the breadth of knowledge turnover. And access to knowledge is greatly improved, and the data accessible to all. The data is massive. The data is accessible to all, not only to the government or scholar in the past. In the digital era, everybody can have access to the data. So from this point of view, this is a good thing, right? But on the other hand, if we don't understand the context of data, the information, that will be a very dangerous thing, because of the high speed of transformation and the very source of information will cause confusion, and also the information arise simultaneously, and it give no time for us to react or to think. So that's poses a challenge to us all. And in terms of the internationalization in digital era, I would like to share my insights on the newly published paper or articles or report from the EUA, it's University with Awards, that actually answer our question in some way. If we answer the question, what's the scenario or what's the future network for our cooperation or higher education, we have to think about our context now we are in. And the first thing we can't escape the topic is the COVID-19 pandemic. It has present a lot of challenges to us, and the digital provision is one of the most prominent options for us to confront these challenges. Second, there is a rising, danger for erosion of the public debate through misinformation. As we said, the digital era, a lot of information has been from, what kind of resources, and misleading the public. And that's the second, challenge. And the third one is education or universities have been increasingly important in geopolitics. As we can see from the pandemic era, we can't escape from that as well. So in such kind of context and meeting these challenges, what's the task of the universities and what's the task of higher education? So in the report, the EUA has presented to establish open and accountable universities to retain our core values. And in meeting that target, we need a strong leadership. And so as we have been working in the LEAD2 and the LEAD1 project for several years, and we have formed a very good LEAD community. So for our academic leaders, what should we do to confront these challenges? And my suggestions or our suggestion is based on our communication, based on our past cooperation in the past 5 or 6 years, we can do something for the future higher education in terms of internationalization. So maybe there's a need to establish academic leaders consortium. Why is that? Because academic leaders, here we refer to university leaders and middle managers in universities. They are the rational community. They can lead, the debate of the mainstream and can restrain and rebuild the trust of core values of the mainstream. So it is of a very significant importance for academic leaders to think about the future, think about internationalization in a digital era, especially in a pandemic time or post-pandemic time, right? So, so I think it's from the project's experience, I think the LEAD community can do such kind of work. And why I raise this, because I myself from the National Academy of Education Administration, and we are specialized in leadership development in China. And we have tried some, solutions or tried some alternatives to raise or to accelerate the understanding among university leaders or academic leaders. We have some very good pilot programs, like blended training programs or seminars we did in 2019. So I just raised the possibilities or alternatives for our cooperation or internationalization in a digital era. Thank you. I think due to the time, I just share this point to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your presentation. Actually, it covered our 3 questions, but I have just one minor follow-up question based on what you have shared with us. What do you predict will be the new models in the next 5 to 10 years?
The new models, just like Yasha has presented, is a virtue, international, virtual internationalization, and we may call this consortium online on air. Academic leaders consortium, or here, because my background, I just refer to the academic leaders in universities. So it is worthwhile for us to think about to create a kind of, consortium online or by MOOCs, by online seminars, by webinar we are doing now. So that's my, simple answers. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Professor Ying, for your insightful ideas. And now, Dr. Yorgun, can you hear me?
Yes, I do. Thank you very much. I soon my colleagues in the panel discussion, thank you very much for the theoretical explanation, and also thank you for the keynote speakers. They already put very informative presentations, and their presentations also included theories of how we can expect this in the digital age. But I won't too much touch upon the theoretical part, but I will a little bit talk about day-to-day operations and then what we face and how we find solutions and some new formats or new models. So my focus will be on that.
Okay.
Charles Steele, the famous thinker, say that we invent as people the tradition. So as we inventing tradition, we invented also the way we live through the digital age. So digital age is becoming the online, I can also say, is becoming the new tradition. So the new usual. And so we can say that we already invented the digital age ourselves. So since we invented it, we are learning it, then means it will be a new norm in the future, as I believe. Because like in the practical point of view, digital or online is less time consuming than the face-to-face getting together or the lectures or face-to-face meetings. And it's a financially less volume when compared to the physical one. I can talk about, as I said, the day-to-day operations and day-to-day what we have been doing. The first thing I would be touching upon is that we see so many digital platforms. And in terms of the delivery of lectures, or in terms of meetings, we can talk about Zoom and Doom and Google, Moodle, a lot of platforms. Is there one that can combine them? Well, at the moment, no. So we have to trust one of them for meeting and the other one for the delivery of our lectures or courses. So that means there is no single platform at the moment that can, serve for all purposes, that all our needs. So we'll be searching for a new practical model in the future. Since, as I said, it's becoming a new norm and new usual, as an office, International Office of Middle East Technical University, we said the new norm is digital. So that means our work is digital, becoming digital, and the university and life is becoming digital. Then we said, why don't we see and discuss this with our partners and with our colleagues that are already dealing with it and having problems. So we had what we call is the International Staff Training Week. We had an International Staff Training Week, which was an online, and the theme was the online digital work and digital world. How are we seeing as the internationalization practicer? So we discussed with more than 80 participants from more than 20 different countries, how are we adjusting to digital world? There are very similar problems, but we see that due to the cultures, there are also cultural differences. There are a lot of different understandings, to the digital work on each part of the world. So the problem is the same, but the approaches are different. And concerning my institution, as a university, we were somewhat ready, more than, not totally, ready for the digital delivery of the courses. We had at the university the open courseware system where, a lot of courses are delivered. As probably many of you are aware that the online course delivery, open courseware is quite famous, and the big universities such as Harvard and Stanford has their own corporate open courseware. My institutions also had been, offering open courseware. We were, delivering some parts of the courses online through our inbuilt, but, systems that we have not bought from outside, but designed through our, the expertise. There were some systems that we've been using, but once this COVID hit everyone, we adjusted and we started, giving delivery and giving lectures, everything online. But then there's another problem came. All right, we can give the courses and everything online, but how about the applied sciences? How about architecture? How about psychology? How are you going to deal with this? This was another part of the story. Okay, I'm myself a historian. I can just, talk about the history or whatever, hours and hours. But how about the lecture in architecture or the applied sciences or the medical fields? This was another challenge. So we also thought that why don't we just also discuss this with other universities and networks. We are a member of big network in Europe. It's called UNICA. And we said, we have this problem and we want to share it and just discuss it with other European universities. And we had the virtual lab. How are you dealing with the virtual lab? How are you going to give the lecture? How are you going to deal with, how are the students will engage in the lectures in the labs? So we had the side of the applied sciences and the virtual labs issued through UNICA. And so digital laboratories, and we discussed that there are a lot of different approaches to digital laboratory system. So that these were some models and ways we engage in the digitalization. Another aspect of digitalization is that before COVID hit, the European Union were already starting to adjust the systems to what we call is the paperless, Erasmus without paperless system, EVP. So we're already being, expecting a new world without paper. But now COVID hit. Okay, we are ready to move to this paperless system. So thanks to European Union EVP, Erasmus without paper system, we adjusted and started using and moving all our agreements, partnership agreements, to the EVP system. So we now, for example, make an agreement with a Belgian university or a German or a French university through the EVP system. We communicate, although our system is different and the Belgian university system is different, the EVP is somewhat helping us to talk through the system, so we can, all those different systems can talk, can merge now thanks to the EVP system. So that's all day-to-day operations and day-to-day, models and suggestions from my side. Thank you.
Okay, actually, your answer to my first question is already covering the second one. So I would like to take this as an opportunity to ask a follow-up question, including my second question. Actually, you mentioned the problems are the same, the solutions are the different among your networks and the platforms. So is it possible to create a joint curricula just to find a joint solution? What do you think about that?
Well, this is a very hard question, because what I have been, on the site and as the officer, not, philosopher or, academic in the area, I find it very difficult to have a very common curriculum. Well, the curriculum could be created commonly by some institutions for a new program, and we can have a new group of target students or target groups or staff to have this new curriculum, which is the common curriculum. But I find it at the moment very difficult to have to offer a totally new curriculum, a common curriculum. I find it very difficult at the moment. But in the future, I see that we're coming to a point where many things and even if the programs and the curriculums are different, I see that there will be some new interim solutions to all these differences. Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Yorgun.
Yeah, sure.
Now I would like to pose my first question to Deborah. Deborah, are you there?
Yes, hello, thank you very much. And thank you also for inviting me as one of the MOOC participants to share some thoughts with you. As a lot of the things that I have at the top of my mind have already been covered by the excellent keynotes, I'd like to focus just on some recommendations. I think I saw those in the slide deck that they'd been integrated. If you could show those for me. I saw it was in the overall slide deck. So while those are being shared, yes, Professor Kundaki gave us a really nice overview of some of these different models which overlap virtual and hybrid mobility, virtual exchange, collaborative online international learning. I'd just like to say that in addition to working as national and international projects coordinator at UNEJ, which is the French Digital University for Economics and Management, I am also a doctoral researcher studying digital education, leadership, literacies for higher education. And I am within days of submitting my thesis. It has to go in this week. So, but this was a nice opportunity to bring together that practical experience from the project management and supporting universities in virtual mobility. We were a partner in a project called Open Virtual Mobility, where a lot of the recommendations came from. The slides are on the full slide deck is on the program website. So, and also to help us catch up time, I'm just going to focus on these. So I think from a strategic point of view, and other presenters have also stressed this, focusing on the purpose, the why, and not neglecting the digital transformation strategy when we're talking about the internationalization, and vice versa. The two have to be aligned, and I think we could go even further by saying it also has to be aligned with the teaching and learning strategy as well. And this brings us to looking at the affordances and risks of all these modalities that are out there for virtual and blended mobility, but taking it from the intercultural experience point of view. And this is where those approaches such as collaborative online international learning, COIL, can really help, because you've got the collaboration at program level between the teachers, and the students are also fully involved as well. And then if you look at some of the resources I've shared around the Open Virtual Mobility project, you can see that there's a series of 8 mini MOOCs on these transversal intercultural competences which are necessary to get the most out of any international online experience. Another finding, this is from my research, that when we have these large multi-stakeholder projects, leadership needs to get everybody involved. I've listed a few examples here. Everybody has a role to play here. And it's a question of building shared meaning and purpose around the initiative in question. And that can take time, and they're usually multiple perspectives. So to avoid that, go through a process of creating this shared meaning. We've also got the environmental impact. Digitalization has its own environmental impact, but maybe the carbon footprint of physical mobility is higher. And I think this is what we're going to see in future, is that universities and organizations will be doing that calculation of carbon footprint advantages and disadvantages. It will become more and more necessary. And if we're looking at European policy as well, there's the whole Green Deal, green and digital being brought together more and more. Mm-hmm. Of course, access and equity from the inclusiveness point of view. And Dr. Barzan said earlier about the lack of professional staff. And so none of this is possible without the necessary time and resources for staff development, for student support, and obviously the technical infrastructure. So all these come together around these notions of purpose, the why, people, and processes, which we could also understand as structures and social systems. So that's really the key messages that I would like to put across today, and hope that we can have some more interesting input here. Thank you once again.
Yeah, thanks again, Deborah. So I would love to follow up with a question regarding networks. I wonder your idea about building networks in digital age. How to build networks and platforms.
Okay, when I was thinking about this question, I was thinking in terms, because it says the new formats, I was thinking of the most appropriate formats for bringing people together in the virtual space. We've seen a lot of virtual conferences, whole day Zoom conferences, and I think we're beginning to see the limitations of those, in that they're fine for content-based presentations, but we miss the social side, the informal conversations and the informal networking, which consolidates a lot of new initiatives. I remember from when I used to go to physical conferences that new project ideas would arise around, you know, coffee in the lobby, because you're meeting people, you've heard a keynote, you've gone up to talk to them, and so on. So I think what we might see, and this is something that I'm exploring with the Media and Learning Association, is immersive environments to get that feeling of presence online. I don't like using the term virtual, because I never did, even when it first came out, because of what it confers of it not being real in such a sense. So immersive environments, I think, will be something that we can see emerging. They're already there. They're still a little bit clunky, not accessible to everybody, but I think there's a real need and demand for those. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much, Deborah. So, Professor Yan, what do you think? Yeah, do you have a different perspective when you listen to our discussants and the keynote speakers about building networks and platforms?
Actually, I think building networks and a platform is very important for the international cooperation. Yes, because this is a must. Actually, with or without pandemic, it's a must, because, you know, for the conventional and the traditional international collaboration, we may think of the much more bilateral cooperation. So actually, till now, mainly for I think most of the universities, we do think that a bilateral cooperation is very important, because we need very strategic partners for developing all kinds of projects, international projects or cooperation formats. But actually, with time, we think that more and more cooperation have to be based on the cooperation network, and all co-build the platform. Actually, this is a new trend for the internationalization of higher education, that we need and focus more and more on the multilateral international cooperation. But you know, compared with the bilateral cooperation, multilateral cooperation, we need a much more virtual methodology. I do agree with the keynote speakers that the virtual internationalization is a new trend, and it's a must, because we can't mobilize or have the mobility of all the actors from different countries or different actors. So virtual is necessary for all of us.
Essence computer is encountering a technical problem from her side.
Oh, yeah.
Professor Yang, you can continue now.
Yeah, we are listening to you.
Okay. Actually, I may say the cooperation networks, it's a must for all of. One is for the virtual internationalization with different actors from different countries. So this is one side. Another side, I think actually the internationalization at home is also another kind of cooperation networks. I think this is a new example from Chinese government. It's a new initiative from Chinese government. So, you know, Chinese government built several people-to-people high-level mechanism with different countries, including EU. European Union. And now the Ministry of Education set up a new center to animate this, to maintain and animate this mechanism with the different countries or EU. So one practice is that quite a lot of Chinese universities was invited to support this project, and with the co-funding of all these selected Chinese university, we co-develop a curriculum inviting Chinese or international experts. So this course is open to all these Chinese university staffs and also students. So now we are on this training. It will be a training process who will last 1 month. So it's open to the professors of and also the staff of the administrative staffs, and also it's open to different Chinese universities. We think that this is the power of the cooperation networks at home. But as I just said, it's another case is the really multilateral international projects are also a new trend, and we do hope we will develop more and share more with these partners. Actually, I will share these 2 cases with you.
Thank you very much for your insights. It really opened our horizons, Professor Yan. Right now, because of the time limit, I would love to skip the 3rd question. I will leave it for another discussion. And right now, I invite the audience to ask questions. Are there any questions from the audience? You can type or raise your hands.
Dr. Aysun, can I just add 1 or 2 sentences?
Yes, please.
You know, we talk about the digital age is very hard and it's very hard to adopt, and not everyone has the internet connection or, you know, the computers, things like that. But there's also good side we shouldn't forget, that the underrepresented groups, that students who have no financial support or the staff who have no language ability can also participate in any activity through the digital age, to the international program. So that's a very good side. We shouldn't forget that. So this is an opportunity for these groups. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much for your addition. Yeah, I may see Professor Anthony raised his hand. Yes, Professor Anthony.
Hi, thanks everybody for these interesting keynotes or speeches or presentations. I was charmed by all of them, but specifically also the one from Deborah, saying that yeah, we have to come to these virtual you don't like to use the word, but virtual tools that would give us more of an immersive experience. But I must say, and together with me, a lot of colleagues, we're so tired of this. We want physical connection again. And we see the advantages, and we have seen the advantages of this. And as you said, it's really good for what I would say follow-up, but an initial cooperation agreements, initial interest between 2 parties. I do not see that happening yet through electronic means. As you said, the corridor, the fact that you're drinking coffee together gives rise to sometimes new ideas, and I do not see this happening so much, at least, or not yet, in the virtual tools that I have been using so far.
Okay, thank you very much, Anthony. So let me just, if there are no questions, I need to conclude the panel discussion. I think there are no more questions, Jimin. Yeah, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Essen, and thank you to all of our panel members. Thank you for this intellectual feast. I'm so sorry that we are so late in our schedule. So I will need to play the role of the demon as the moderator of the session to push a bit the schedule now. And after all these informative interventions, now like what are our insights gained? So I would like to invite our representative from our LEAD2 partner university, Dr. Su Yang, to briefly summarize the takeaway knowledge of the webinar. Dr. Su Yang is a postdoctoral researcher in Institute of International and Comparative Education at Beijing Normal University. Her research interests involve comparative higher education and internationalization of higher education. So Dr. Su Yang, the floor is yours.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Today we have three wonderful keynote speeches. The first is Professor Dr. Yasa. His topic is about virtual internationalization. He presented the definition of virtual internationalization, the impact of ICT on internationalization, the outlook of higher education after VI, and the challenges for VI. I think he has some definition which are very interesting and we should pay attention. And then Dr. Bazan, he introduced the history, the process, and the challenges of internationalization of higher education in Kurdistan. I think most of us, at least me, before today, we knew less about Kurdish universities, yes. And the third is Professor Liu from Yunnan Normal University. He introduced the internationalization of Yunnan Normal University. The China-Europe, I think China-Europe universities community is a good way of internationalization cooperation, yeah. And about the roundtable, today we discussed internationalization in the digital age. What are new models, new formats, and new scenarios? As we all know, in the digital age, online internationalization is an inevitable trend, especially by the influence of COVID-19. For example, MOOCs, collaborative online flipped classroom digital internationalization will appear in our daily life more and more. So I think we should and must have closer cooperation network. So because time is limited, so that's all. That's my summary. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Su Yang, for your remarks. And actually, with your remarks, I think we are approaching to the end of this webinar. But before we conclude the webinar, I would like to invite our participants to help us to fill in this poll. So I will ask my colleague Zhao to pass on to the next slide, please. Yes, and launch the poll. So your feedback is really important for us to ameliorate the organization of the online webinars. As Professor Anthony just said, actually, we are now experiencing many virtual webinars, virtual MOOCs, etc. And maybe we want some more social interactions with people, and all these kinds of remarks we will bear in mind. Maybe in our future organization, maybe not the webinar, but other events, we will make sure that we can improve our organization of the events to better achieve the end of it. So please, dear participants, help us fill in this feedback, and the pool results will be used solely for the purpose of the project, and only aggregated results will be reported later on. And your participation in this pool is voluntary, and you are free to withdraw consent at any time if you want to. And at the same time, when you are filling in this feedback pool, I would like to invite my colleague Asen to conclude the whole webinar.
Thank you very much, Human. To conclude this meeting, yeah, actually it has been established a practical framework to classify aspects of virtual internationalization of higher education, its new models, new concepts, and we really enjoyed hearing different internationalization activities in Kurdish universities, as well as from Chinese universities. It was really insightful for us. So, moreover, digitalization, we have learned that new models, new concepts, and digitalization opens our minds. And thanks to virtual mobility, of course, there are some challenges, as Professor Anthony mentioned and Deborah mentioned. There are some commonalities. So in terms of creating platforms, in terms of governance in digital age, so I can conclude that we have more diversified network because of the diverse audience participating from all over the world, and there are cultural oriented network again. And I can also add that the leadership skills need to develop, because it needs to be transformed as well from traditional leadership, from centralized leadership skills to flat leadership skills. And so that's all for concluding remarks. It was really a great pleasure to host you here, and hope to see you in our other activities.
Thank you very much, Asen, for the concluding remarks. So it is the end of today's webinar. If you want to keep updated with the progress of the LEAD2 project, please follow our project webpage and social media platforms such as Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, and Bilibili. You have the links in the chat box now. And thanks again to all of our project partners and LEAD2 community members. You made the past 3 hours a real unforgettable memory. There seem no better words than the slogan of our project to better conclude the whole session. So lead together, lead tomorrow. I hope to see you next time. Thank you very much for your cooperation and your participation. Thank you.